Thad Brown, this is AJ Feldman, and this is Buffalo Gameday Recap. This will be the last one we do this year because, well, the Bills never really had much of a chance in this playoff game, losing 27-10 to the Bengals. And AJ, you know, I think the first reaction is just how surprised we are about how uncompetitive the Bills were in this game. I mean, it seemed like that whatever they planned on doing offensively and defensively, they should have done the opposite because nothing worked. You know, I thought the defensive game plan was the one that stood out more to me. You know, we talked all week about how the Bengals were going to be down 3 offensive linemen. You know, you would think, okay, if you're in offense and you're not sure about your pressure, choice A would be to get the ball out of your quarterback's hands fast. And they did that all game long. I mean, right the very first snap, Burrow drops back, throws the chase for 8 yards over the middle like that. And, you know, there were countless occasions in this game where the Bengals got 7-8 yards on first down on, you know, swing passes or quick throws or things that, you know, not necessarily be easily to defend, but are certainly like basic offense 101 type things. And for the Bills to, you know, allow that to happen, to play soft enough to where you can get those quick, easy throws on a regular basis, it kind of just boggled the mind. And, you know, look, the other part about this is, too, I always say, you get down 14 points in the NFL, it changes everything you want to do. And the Bills were down 14 points lickety-split in this game. So, you know, whatever they may have wanted to go to, whatever maybe steps 3 and 4 of the game plan was, we may never have seen that because Buffalo was chasing the game literally from the jump in this one. But regardless, you know, both sides of the ball, you know, offense too, you know, whatever Allen seemed to succeed with in this game, it was out of structure. I mean, his best 3 or 4 plays were all, I'm going to scramble and throw wrong-footed. I'm going to, you know, hit Cole Beasley going across the middle. I'm going to throw to Khalil Shakir, you know, after I've scrambled around for 5 seconds. Within the structure of the offense, the Bills did very little in this game. So to me, you know, the number one thing that I come away with and think, what the bleep was going on, are game plans.
Yeah, and my big takeaway, the line of scrimmage. You know, it's a trope for Sean McDermott. You have to win the line of scrimmage. Everybody says it. It was ever apparent that the Bills were overmatched on both sides of the line of scrimmage. You talk about the difference between the short first quarter that we got to see in Cincinnati. Well, you know, even though the Bengals marched down the field the first time, we're trying to do it the same the second time. Well, they didn't have their offensive linemen. The Von Millerless pass rushers were going to disrupt them. It was going to turn to this.
That's how it should have gone in this game.
That's how people expected. You know, the reason why it wasn't going to be Joe Burrow marching down the field over and over and over again was because of the offensive line. It didn't matter at all. I don't know if the first time Joe Burrow got pressured is because Boogie Basham jumped off sides and basically got a free run to the quarterback before they flailed it off sides. Defensively, you know, the footing was tough out here, obviously, with the snow. People were kind of slipping around, but the Bills cornerbacks were playing off. I don't know if they were just afraid to get beat deep with, you know, obviously the talented wide receivers. But even if you look at the numbers from their wideouts, not overpowering by any stretch of the imagination.
9 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown were all 3 wideouts together in this game.
And like you said afterwards, you would have taken that.
Yeah.
It was Hayden Hurst getting it done. It was the run game. That was the first thing Matt Milano said post-game in the locker room. What went wrong? He said the run game. It was a 3-word answer, typical from Matt Milano. But, you know, when you have those types of weapons outside, if you can also just run the ball up the middle, it's going to be a world of nightmare. And then on the Bills side of the ball, you know, they give up the touchdown defense, 3 and out, touchdown, and things just fell apart. The offensive line couldn't protect Josh Allen. Once again, the secondary receivers couldn't do anything. Stefon Diggs even couldn't really do anything. And like you said, it was out-of-structure plays. The run game did next to nothing.
Right.
I think at one point
pretty average.
Yeah, I looked maybe in the second or third quarter, their longest rush might not have even been, I think it was 8 yards maybe. It might have ended that way. When you can't pass the ball, when you can't run the ball, and
that's going to be a bad game for you.
Yeah, and Ken Dorsey was in some critical moments still running the ball on first down and going nowhere. Now you're going into second and long, third and long, and you just can't win games that way.
One thing I want to talk about quick here before we kind of get to the Bills' reaction. The loss of Daquan Jones in this game, to me, cannot be overstated. This is a guy this year, look, he's not a star, but this is a guy all season that's been their best run defender at the point of attack, you know, even better than Ed Oliver. He's been a very solid, underrated pass rusher. And the things that he does, you know, against both styles of offense, you know, cannot be overstated. And I think you saw in this game what happens to the Bills' defensive line and what happens to their defense to a larger degree without him. You know, this was a Bengals offensive line that was missing 3 starters. Now, look, we had a conversation, I think, during the week about the Bengals O-line. Look, it wasn't very good with the starters in. So when they bring in backups, are those backups awful? Or are they maybe just a little bit worse than the guys who were in there? And maybe it was the latter. Regardless, you know, the Bills, without Von Miller, did not have the edge rushers to take advantage of any offensive line. And I will say in this game, without Daquan Jones, they don't have the tackles to take advantage of an offensive line. And I know that's an indictment of Ed Oliver. And late in the season, Ed Oliver, although he was really good midseason, Ed Oliver was not productive enough. There were games before this one where he was invisible for long stretches. Last week against the Dolphins was one of those games. So the Bills' 2 best defensive linemen this season were Von Miller and Daquan Jones. Neither one of them played in this game.
Matt Milano had some nice plays, a couple. You can't say many good things about the defense, but other than him, Tremaine Edmonds didn't really make a big impact. Obviously, by the end of the game, the secondary was just completely depleted. Trey White left the game, Jordan Poyer left the game, Dean Marlowe left the game. They were throwing out anybody in the secondary, and just obviously Von Miller left early in the season with a torn ACL. Those guys it's not like these were scrubs. It's not like this is, an island of misfit toys as their pass rush. These are first-round picks, second-round picks.
Yes.
So once we start talking big picture, those draft picks are one of the main reasons why this season ends with a catastrophe of a loss this year.
So Brandon Beane is one of the best GMs in the league, and that remains true no matter what I'm about to say. But that being said, he has whiffed on defensive line talent. He has whiffed on offensive line talent. Remember, they signed Roger Saffold and Ryan Bates this year to play guard, and neither of those two guys were what they wanted him to be this year. And Spencer Brown, 3rd-round pick, spent on a starting right tackle, and he was a problem most of the season as well. So for the Bills, look, this is a game where they got punched in the mouth early and then got run over late when the Bengals salted this one away with about 5 minutes of rush offense late. And, the Bills really kind of shell-shocked about this one. Certainly the emotions not very positive after getting beat so bad by the Bengals.
Obviously you want to win all of them. It's the way it goes sometimes. They had a good game plan. Credit to those guys. They came out, they played hard. We just didn't have it today.
We didn't execute offensively, defensively, special teams today. It's a recipe for a disaster. So got to get back to the drawing board and fix those problems.
The challenge with that offense is you commit to stopping the run, and then they've got 3 really good receivers that one-on-one are tough matchups for you. So, I thought we came in with a good game plan and we adjusted through it. And at the end of the day, it wasn't enough.
There's ebbs and flows in a game. We all had our time in the sun in regards to not playing complementary football, not putting our defense in an advantageous position or special teams, or so. You win as a team, you lose as a team. All these cliches are a lot harder when, this is the conclusion of a season, conclusion of a group of guys being together that you really care for.
All right, after the game, Sean McDermott met with the media, and there's one quote that kind of has the ire of fans, and understandably so, in my opinion. McDermott said, "Look, we all have to grow from this. These are the games you have to learn from." And it sounds like something Sean McDermott has said every season at this time, probably because he probably has said something along those lines every season. Look, this was year 3. This was the go for it year. This was the spend big money on Von Miller year. And I know Von Miller obviously got hurt and the Bills can't control that, but this is not we're going to learn and get better. I mean, there's nothing more they can say. I'm not saying that what McDermott's words are incorrect, but the fan base is starting to grow tired because the window doesn't last forever. With Josh Allen, the Bills are going to have an opportunity just about every year. But this was the year where Stefon Diggs is getting to 30 years old. Receivers, tend to age out quick these days. This was Von Miller at 33. I don't know how many more years he's got left. This was the last year where you have Josh Allen on a rookie quarterback contract where he's not eating up that much of the cap. And this year, look, it's going to be a failure. They won a bunch of games. They won the division. They won a playoff game. But this season is still going to be a failure. And, for the fan base to hear Sean McDermott say, we got to learn from this, I can understand the frustration. Again, what else is Sean McDermott supposed to say? But the fans are right. This was not supposed to be a learn from it year. This was supposed to be a raise a trophy year.
And eventually, you can't keep learning from games. You have to have learned from them. They have had enough of these games where, you learned from the blowout loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. You learned from the 13 seconds loss. And we were talking about this just before. The coaching staff, obviously these are – you can't say enough about the things that they've had to overcome this season. Damar Hamlin, injuries, weather, everything that's happened in Buffalo. You can't say enough about them as people, as leader of men, as a group to hold together this locker room.
For sure.
But there now have to be serious questions about the offensive coaching staff, the defensive coaching staff, and the head coaching staff, whether or not this is a core unit that can push this team over the top and get to a Super Bowl?
You know, I think of I got to think of the right name. Doug Collins is the name that comes to mind now. Do you know who Doug Collins is?
Basketball,
yeah. So he was the head coach of the Bulls during Michael Jordan's early years and had a couple good playoff runs. I don't think we're as successful as the Bills were, but he wasn't the guy that could get Michael Jordan to a championship. It turned out to be Phil Jackson. You know, now look, I'm not going to sit here and say the Bills should fire Sean McDermott. Not
Are
even
you
close.
saying they should hire Phil Jackson?
Maybe that'd be a good idea too. If they could, you know, the guy's got plenty of rings, so he's got some experience there. But, you know, there has been a thought that, you know, all this year where if the Bills weren't going to win a championship this year, or at least make the Super Bowl, you know, is it possible that maybe this coaching staff and or Sean McDermott is not the right guy to get this team to a championship? Now, look, Sean McDermott's going to come back next year. I would be stunned if he got fired. And for all the Bills fans out there that might want him fired, you fire Sean McDermott, 95% of the guys you might hire are going to be worse. You know, so that's where we start right off the bat with that. But it is possible that Sean McDermott is really good at a lot of things, but the guy to get this team over the top might not be Sean McDermott.
And you talk about Doug Collins. Why don't we just look at Sean McDermott's mentor, Andy Reid?
Yep.
There for a long time in Philadelphia, obviously plenty of success. Eventually went on to have success in Kansas City, but they needed a new guy in charge, and eventually Philadelphia won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and Doug Peterson has got a new team building up in Jacksonville as well. So for the Bills, as we said, look, they fall in the divisional round for a second straight year. It's tough to take for any team. Look, only one team is going to be happy with how the season ends. For 31 others, it's a disappointment. And for this Bills team, it is the end of a long season. As AJ said, through a lot of adversity, but also a lot of work towards a goal they will not achieve.
Disappointment. You play to win. Our goal is to win a Super Bowl, a world championship, and we didn't accomplish that. So everything that happened this season is kind of null and void in our minds, and it sucks.
God had a plan for us, and you know, I guess, you know, this is where, you know, he saw an end in that, and you know, like I said, man, we've been through so much this year. You know, we just got to stick by one another, because I know this hurt everybody. You know what I mean? It's just any person would feel that way. Anybody in this locker room I know felt that way, so definitely disappointed.
It sucks. And we try to compete at a high level all of the time. And, you know, just sometimes it gets us, you know, and that's the sucky part of being human. But, you know, like, the good thing is that we got each other, and we win together, and we lose together.
You know, this is a tough league, and it's a tough business that way, and you learn from things like this. I'm proud of them, even though this hurts. Proud of them in the way they handled themselves with class this year, and the ups and downs and the adversity that they faced. And I think they'll take that with them. But for right now, you know, this stings.
And you talk about Super Bowl windows. Obviously, the contracts coming up. You know, the players who could potentially have to leave, especially on defense. Sean McDermott was asked point blank, do you feel like your Super Bowl window is closing? And he dismissed the question aside, saying no. It was more than just a Sean McDermott question. It was kind of a laughing, oh, no. You can take it that way. So, obviously, when you have Josh Allen, the Super Bowl window, you always have a chance. But things will definitely get harder for the Bills going forward to construct this roster. And another big thing to think about going forward is what happened to Stefon Diggs today. He was not productive in the game, didn't get a lot of receptions, yards, targets. On the sideline, CBS camera showed him visibly upset with
Pointing
gesturing in the direction
Allen,
of Josh Allen. You know, take that for what it's worth. And then afterwards, he tried to bolt away from the locker room seemingly before even the coaching staff got back. He had to get pulled back into the locker room. Sean McDermott was asked about that as well. He said that, you know, Diggs was there in the locker room for what he needed to be there for.
Right.
So kind of trying to calm that fire. But eventually he stormed out before certainly the media got in there, before I believe any of his teammates left. And you look outside, he left wearing his shorts. So he didn't take long to prepare himself to leave the locker room.
Yeah, it's not shorts weather out here for anybody who's listening right now. So looking ahead with this team, you know, I think we, you know, walk away from this season. What didn't work? Well, number one, you know, the Bills.
Lot.
Well, yes. I mean, in this game
Today.
for sure, you know, but I think long term, we've talked about secondary receivers all year. The Bills put their trust in Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie to step up where John Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, and Cole Beasley were productive, and those guys were not good enough to such an extent. They had to bring John Brown and Cole Beasley back. Number two, the offensive line has been slowly degrading over the last few years. The Bills thought Roger Saffold would be a solution. Great guy, great leader, but didn't live up to the free agent billing. Ryan Bates is a guy I think the Bills can work with at right guard, but again, I don't think he played up to the standard he hoped to. And they might even have a right tackle situation that they need to address with Spencer Brown. Again, year 3 for Bills rookies tends to be their best, so I think there's optimism for him there. But offensively, they put their trust primarily into young guys who didn't produce. Same thing on the defensive side. They spent a first-round draft pick on a corner to man the other side across from Trey White whenever Trey White was going to come back, and Kaiir Elam did not do what a first-round pick should do. He was not good enough. I think Dane Jackson, has shown that he can be a competent seventh-round starting corner as a seventh-round pick, but not a guy you want to lean on. Christian Benford, who knows? His season cut short by injury. Maybe he would have, stepped up and took over that job. But either way, the Bills spent assets on that position and didn't succeed. And speaking of assets being spent, you talked about the defensive line. Greg Rousseau, Boogie Basham,
AJ
Epinesa, all first and second round picks over the last 3 seasons. I don't think any of the 3 of them made more than a tackle or 2 in this game. So this is now an era where the Bills have their core. You have Josh Allen, you have Stefon Diggs for at least another year or 2, Deion Dawkins, Milano, maybe Tremaine Edmonds comes back. But now you have to augment that core by continuing to draft well. The thing the Bills did not do well this year, the guys they had drafted, they relied upon, failed them this season.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Kaiir Elam not living up to his billing as a first-year corner this year. I think that is accurate for what he was asked to do. That was a spot going into that draft where you knew if you were taking a cornerback in the first round, he was going to have to produce. Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy position to start off. And we look 3 years down the future, Kaiir Elam might work out as a first-round pick. But that first-round pick was not chosen to be good 3 years from now. It was chosen to be good this year to try and get to Glendale. So obviously Kaiir Elam, a failure for what he was hoped to do this year. You talk about the defensive line, obviously a big miss on all those high draft picks, because that's a space that the team has invested those assets in, the first round, the second round picks. You talk about the offensive line. When's really the last time they invested high resources into their offensive linemen? You go back to, obviously, Deion Dawkins, a first-round pick.
Third round pick.
Third round pick, excuse me. So even then, Mitch Morse got a somewhat sizable free agent.
He was a big free agent, so it's fair to call him a high-level asset being spent.
And those are picks that worked.
Yeah, those guys are good.
So when you invest in your offensive line, they have worked out so far. But when you try and do this patchwork, you have a mobile quarterback, he can take hits, he can do things. We're not going to spend a first-round pick. We're not going to spend a second-round pick. We're not going to go out and sign a big-name guy to a big contract. We're going to sign Roger Saffold and hope that he gets it done. Obviously, there are only so many dollars to go around, and they tried to get it done with this quote-unquote island of misfit toys in terms of, capital spent. And it clearly didn't get it done. And I think they tried to do that on the same side with the skill position guys. They tried to get it done with Gabe Davis taking up a step. Isaiah McKenzie, who had 1 successful game so far heading into the season as a slot receiver. They tried to
make him a starter, basically.
Yeah, they tried to have Josh Allen be, on a chessboard, the queen of their offense, and have everybody else just kind of, we're going to let Josh Allen jump around the board and do everything. We don't care if we lose our pawns, our knights, our rooks, our bishops. We got Josh Allen. We still got the queen left. Well, it didn't work out for the Bills with how they tried to construct this offense.
And to be fair, look, you only have so many first-round picks. You only have so many dollars you can spend in free agency, and the Bills have been up against it a little bit cap-wise. So, and look, every team, needs to have guys and lesser assets that work out to be able to be a championship team. And I think that's the story this year, is that the secondary assets, that you tried to make into your secondary players were not very good. And now the Bills are in a position where, for the last couple of years, it's been chase the Chiefs, get the Chiefs, prepare for the Chiefs. Let's get Von Miller to beat the Chiefs. Well, now you got to beat the Chiefs and the Bengals, because this Bengals team has now gone to their second straight AFC championship. They might go to a second straight Super Bowl. Joe Burrow has now won road playoff games against Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. He's got 3 of those under his belt. Josh Allen hasn't won a single one. So right now the Bengals are up with the Chiefs as the class of the AFC. And, by the end of next week, we might determine they are the class of the AFC, and the Bills are playing third fiddle. So this is a team that's chasing, with multiple players when it comes to Tremaine Edmonds and Jordan Poyer, among others who might need contracts next year, in a spot where the Bills don't have a lot of money to spend in free agency. There is a ton of work that's going to have to be done. And, look, you can take some of these younger guys. You talk about Kaiir Elam maybe getting better down the road. That's going to have to be a solution to some degree, but they just have to flat out draft better.
And you talk about them being the third fiddle going into next year. This could be the last offseason where they are the third fiddle, clearly, if things don't progress. Because you've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had a nice playoff run. They've got Trevor Lawrence. They could ascend up to that next year as well. You've got the Los Angeles Chargers. If they can figure out coaching and everything like that, Justin Herbert, you're probably not going to take many quarterbacks in the league ahead of them. So this AFC is getting very crowded, and right now the Bills are clearly not in those top 2 spots right now.
And that's not even talking about a division where, I think the Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets, maybe not the Patriots, took steps forward this year to be, more competitive, at least for half a season. So, all right, look, that's going to do it for Buffalo Game Day Recap for this season. Thanks for everybody who watched and listened along. Look, the Bills had a good season by most standards, probably not a good season by their standards. And look, they will have Josh Allen next year. They will have a healthy Von Miller at some point. Stefon Diggs should be back. This is a team that's, again, going to have very reasonable Super Bowl aspirations. But it kind of felt like going into this year, this was their year. They were the favorite. And now they fall not only one step, but multiple steps short. For AJ Feldman, I'm Thad Brown. Click on something else here at RochesterFirst.com.